Hello and welcome back to INMR. In today's podcast, I'm going to be analysing the 1-1 draw between Liverpool and Manchester City. The race for the top spot is now closer than ever, with just 1 point between the top three. Arsenal are currently leading the line on goal difference after their 2-1 win versus Brentford. Here's how it unfolded at Anfield yesterday evening. There was some irony in City's opener as they took the lead against Liverpool with their own corner taken quickly moment. City have been known for their aerial dominance in recent seasons, but this time, rather than a powerful header, Stones' opener was a near post strike that fooled every Liverpool player with a clever fizzed ball low into the 6-yard box from Kevin De Bruyne's corner. Nathan Ake did well to pull Alexis McAllister out of position to leave Stones enough space to run into and score. This was a move straight from the training ground, and Guardiola immediately pointed to his set-piece analyst and coach as the ball found the back of the net. Liverpool came out firing for the second half though, and in one moment the game had totally turned on its head. Alexis McAllister equalised from the penalty spot after Darwin Núñez pounced on a short pass from Nathan Ake, which in turn drew a stupid foul from Ederson. To be honest, I've got no idea what he was thinking there. Núñez has a tight angle to try and score from if he had won the ball, so a lunging challenge really didn't seem necessary and certainly not worth an injury that has resulted in Ederson potentially missing the Arsenal match in 3 weeks' time. Klopp's team were relentless after their equaliser, but unfortunately Luis Diaz's poor efforts in front of goal are moments that the Reds are going to look back on with a lot of regret. 3 times in the space of 10 minutes the Colombian found space in and around City's penalty area, and in all of those times he failed to convert his chances. However, in my opinion, it doesn't justify the mockery he got after the full-time whistle on social media, as aside from his finishing product, he was superb on the left wing, and he caused the City defence all kind of trouble throughout the game. In the end, the spoils were shared in the last dance between Guardiola and Klopp. What a remarkable rivalry it's been between two of the greatest managers in Premier League history. Moving on to the tactical portion of the podcast, this is where I point out 3 parts of the game that changed its course that you may not have noticed. Let's start off with both sides' shape. Liverpool and City converted into a 3-2-4-1 when in possession, and out of possession they both opted for the 4-4-2. For City, they'd moved Stones into the midfield as a second pivot. City built by waiting for one of Liverpool's centre mids to commit to pressing, creating the 4-4-2 shape and forcing the rest of Liverpool's midfield line to flatten. This allowed Bernardo Silva and De Bruyne to reposition higher into bigger spaces. Virgil van Dijk looked to cover De Bruyne where possible as the Belgian ghosted away from Endo. Liverpool's backline then shifted across, often leaving Silva or Julian Alvarez free to create chances on the opposite wing. You can see Alvarez at the bottom of your screen in this particular shot with a load of space ready to exploit. One issue City had when changing shape came when they failed to secure the ball cleanly from direct Liverpool play. City's player-orientated approach often won the first ball against the Reds' front line, but whenever Liverpool's midfield regained the second ball, they often found their front line anyway. They then targeted the wide spaces around City's temporary back three. During these transitions, Kyle Walker was particularly tested by Liverpool's attackers, as he was forced to defend large pockets of space, as you can see in this picture here. As it's passed over to Diaz, Walker has loads of space to cover and no one really there to come and help him. And in my opinion, obviously like I said before, apart from Diaz being not very good in front of goal, he made it really difficult for Walker. Liverpool also used a 3-2-4-1 shape when in possession and converted to the 4-4-2 when defending. This involved Bradley moving extremely high from right back, leaving a back three behind him. Harvey Elliott then moved inside to support Diaz and Dominic Szoboszlai around Núñez, with McAllister and Endo creating the double pivot in midfield. Most of Liverpool's best build-up came via their right side rotations, especially as Alvarez jumped out to press. Bradley's crossing, Elliott's supportive combinations and Núñez's direct runs all threatened and often isolated Nathan Ake. And similar to on the other side with Kyle Walker, there's nothing Ake could really do because there wasn't anybody there to support him with dealing with Liverpool on that right-hand side. In the second half, Manchester City adapted their defensive shape to try and combat Liverpool's threat on the right wing. Alvarez tracked the advancing runs of Bradley, with Ake now covering Elliott. From here, Liverpool's right side barely combined for a significant period in the second half. Instead, Liverpool changed their plan and played well-placed balls in behind City's back line. Mo Salah was then subbed on and he was added to the right side, with Joe Gomez moved to right back as Andy Robertson came on as the left back. Gomez looked to invert where possible, purely to get Salah isolated against Ake, and when he got into this position, Salah repeatedly worked balls through to Núñez or Diaz. I think the big chance that immediately springs to mind is when he played that brilliant through ball to Diaz where he really should have scored. Seeking to regain control, Guardiola subbed off De Bruyne and Alvarez, Obviously, as we saw, De Bruyne was not happy at all. He brought on Jeremy Doku and Mateo Kovacic. Silva then moved to the right-hand side, and Foden came inside as one of the number 10s. Silva's support and energy helped deal with Robertson's overlapping runs, while helping Walker deal with Diaz on occasion as well. Kovacic added much needed control in the midfield for City, but their lack of runs in behind Liverpool's backline remained an issue. These runs weren't frequent enough to stretch the home side's back four, nor create enhanced pockets for City's 10s to operate in. Instead, the majority of City's movements around the player in possession were back towards the ball. As a result, Liverpool's midfield unit were excellent in duelling and regaining possession, as the spaces they had to manage were much smaller. Although Doku hit the post late on, City created very little in front of goal compared to Liverpool, but they were resilient enough to secure a point. This was the biggest talking point of the game. It was the penalty call in the 98th minute for Jeremy Doku's foul on Alexis McAllister. City were defending a late corner when Doku attempted to clear the ball, but he recklessly followed through and boots McAllister in the chest, but the officials for some reason did not give the foul late on. In my opinion, the officials bottled it massively. I don't think they wanted to be responsible for the whole title race narrative changing. Obviously, City have got a massive game at the end of the month against Arsenal, and I think they didn't want to be responsible for the narrative of that game and what's going to come from that changing because of Liverpool potentially getting 3 points. It was a huge moment, and if the penalty had been given, it had been scored, that would have eventually seen Liverpool win the title, in my opinion. Anywhere else on the pitch though, that's a free kick and a yellow card at a minimum. Michael Oliver and the guys up in VAR, I think, lacked courage to do what was right. I think officials have been very fearful on what fans and pundits are going to think of them if they give certain decisions. And this was another one where they didn't want to get slated for making a decision that was controversial, but actually that's clouded their view of the fact that it is just a stonewall penalty, in my opinion anyway. And I mean, how many times this season have we seen players sent off for accidental challenges that were dangerous? One that springs to mind to me immediately is Billy Gilmour's red card against Everton. He made a genuine attempt for the ball, he got the ball first, but the follow through was dangerous. He had his studs up and he caught Onana high up, and he was sent off for that because it was dangerous. Yes, he got the ball, but the follow through endangered the opponent. That's the exact same thing here, but because it's a game of such bigger stature, and you know, if the result does change from a 1-1 to a 2-1, that's a season defining moment. And I think although it's no different, you know, he won the ball, followed through, it's a dangerous foul, they bottled it because the game was of a bigger stature than something like Brighton versus Everton. Given how the game went, City's general history at Anfield and Liverpool's tendency to score just when they need to, City are going to be absolutely delighted with that draw. They were in a position to do much better early on, and they could have even stolen a late winner with Doku hitting the post. Overall, they should be over the moon that the Liverpool winner didn't come, and they got away with conceding a penalty, despite it being a blatant dangerous foul on Alexis McAllister. The title race is heating up, and City have another big game at the end of the month as they take on Arsenal at home. For now though, the league table looks like this. Arsenal are at the top on goal difference with 64 points, Man City are in third on 63, and that is a huge gap between third and fourth, so it really is just a 3-horse race between these three top sides. In my opinion, I think City are so inevitable that they will win at Arsenal and just nick the league title, but I would like to see Liverpool win it. I think it would be quite fitting for Klopp to do it in his last season in front of the fans. But I mean, yeah, like I say, City are inevitable and they probably will end up winning the title. So that is where I'm going to end the podcast. There isn't currently a Game Week 29 roundup on the INMR website. It's currently going through a big update, so there won't be articles for the next week or so. So make sure that you're following INMR across the other platforms to keep updated with everything that's going on. There's going to be no articles until next week that are published. So in return, there's going to be 3 podcasts, including this one. There'll be one in a couple of days previewing the Brighton-Roma game, and there'll be one at the end of the week reacting to the Champions League quarter-final draw. And there's going to be a lot more stuff on X and Instagram until the website is back up and running and everything will be back to normal. Thank you very much for listening to this podcast, and I will see you in the Roma versus Brighton preview on Wednesday evening. Thanks for listening.